Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We start today's video with a satisfying little tale of driveway justice, starring a steel-bodied Jeep, a passive-aggressive neighbor, and a dad who knew exactly how to handle things without saying a single harsh word. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Neighbor door dents meet dad's steel Jeep. When I was a kid, my family rented a duplex with a shared driveway. Wasn't fancy, but it suited us fine. The other side of the duplex was rented by a woman named Cheryl. At first, everything was normal. She'd give a little wave when we crossed paths, and there weren't any issues, but after a couple of months, something changed. Cheryl started acting strangely toward my mom. It wasn't anything obvious at first, no yelling or direct confrontations, but what she did do was start hitting my mom's car with her car door every time she got out. My mom's car was always parked on the same side of the driveway as was Cheryl's. Cheryl would get home from work about a half hour after my mom, and without fail, there'd be a loud thunk as she flung her door open, slamming it right into the side of my mom's car. Every single day. At first, Mom didn't want to make a fuss. She let it slide, thinking maybe Cheryl didn't realize what she was doing. But after a few days of fresh dings and scratches, she mentioned it to my dad. My dad frowned when he heard. "I'll take care of it," he said in that calm but determined voice that always meant he had a plan. Now, my dad had a 1967 Jeep CJ5 at the time. The thing was a beast, solid steel body, tough as nails. It didn't run just yet. Dad was slowly fixing it up on the weekends, but it still looked intimidating, sitting there in the garage with its faded paint and rugged frame. The next day when I got home from school, I noticed the Jeep wasn't in the garage anymore. Dad had it parked in Mom's usual spot, right next to where Cheryl parked. It didn't take long for the fun to begin. For the next week, Cheryl kept up her routine. She'd pull in, park, swing her door open, bam, right into the side of the Jeep. Only now, instead of denting or scratching Mom's car, she was battering her own door against a steel wall. The Jeep didn't even flinch. Her car door, on the other hand, started to look worse and worse. Paint chipped, metal warped. It was like watching someone punch a brick wall and then get mad at the wall for not moving. Eventually, Cheryl had had enough. She complained to the landlord, saying my parents were keeping an abandoned, non-working vehicle in the shared driveway. Our landlord wasn't the most hands-on guy, but he didn't want any drama, so he served my parents with a notice, moved the Jeep within a certain time frame or else there'd be consequences. That just made Dad smile. "All right," he said, "guess it's time to get serious about fixing it up." He took a day off work and spent the whole day tinkering with the Jeep. By late afternoon, I heard the familiar roar of an engine that hadn't run in years. He got it running well enough to take it for a spin around the block. It wasn't perfect, but it moved, and that's all that mattered. That evening, when Cheryl got home, Dad was ready. The moment she pulled in, he fired up the Jeep and took it for a 5-minute drive around the neighborhood, just enough to prove the point. He did the same thing the next day and the next. Every day when she got home, Dad would hop in the Jeep and drive it around the block, then park it right back in its spot. Cheryl wasn't happy. She tried complaining to the landlord again, but now she was told there was nothing they could do. The Jeep ran. It was legally parked, and Dad was driving it regularly, exactly what the rules required. For 2 months, Dad kept up his little ritual. That Jeep probably circled our block more times in those weeks than it had in the past decade. Meanwhile, Cheryl stopped slamming her door into anything, probably because there wasn't much left of her poor car door to damage. Finally, when our lease was up, we moved out. Dad towed the Jeep to our new place where he eventually got it fully restored. But every time I see an old CJ5 now, I can't help but remember the look on Cheryl's face as she realized she'd destroyed her own car door, all because she couldn't act like a decent neighbor. Dad never said a harsh word to her. He let the Jeep do all the talking. And our second story. Couple wanted to buy my engagement ring because they were in a rush. I work in a fine jewelry store, and as you can probably imagine, I've had my fair share of bizarre customer interactions, but this one from not too long ago definitely earns a spot near the top of my list. A couple walked in. They seemed rushed, a little frantic even. The man immediately approached the counter, practically bouncing on his toes. Him: "We want to get married right now, so we need a size 5 ring." I smiled politely. "Congratulations." Unfortunately, all of our rings in the cases are stock size 7. We can certainly size them down, but that process usually takes a few days. His face fell and he looked at the woman, who seemed just as impatient. After a second, his eyes darted to my hand. Him, well, what about that one on your hand? I blinked, a little thrown off. I held up my hand, assuming he meant the men's band I'd just shown them a few minutes earlier. This one? That's a men's ring. It's a size 10. He shook his head, frowning, and pointed directly at my engagement ring. Him, no, that. We'll just take that. I stared at him, not sure I'd heard correctly. That's my engagement ring. Him, right, and it's a size 5. That's what we need. I actually laughed a little, thinking surely this was a joke. I'm sorry, but my engagement ring isn't for sale. It's mine. He didn't look amused. His fiancée crossed her arms and huffed. They turned to each other and started speaking rapidly in Spanish, clearly annoyed. I couldn't catch all of it, but the frustration was obvious. After a few moments of hushed arguing between them, the man turned back to me. Him, well, this is insane. We'll just go somewhere else in that case. I nodded, still trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. Okay, I wish you both the best of luck. They left in a huff, still muttering to each other as they exited the store. I stood there for a moment, dumbfounded. I've had customers ask for strange things before, but no one's ever tried to buy my personal jewelry off my hand. I couldn't even imagine the logic. Did they think I'd just take it off and hand it over because they were in a hurry? As soon as they were out the door, I shook my head and laughed. I could just imagine trying to explain that sale to my regional manager. Oh yeah, I sold my own engagement ring off my finger to a walk-in couple who were in a rush. For the record, yes, I'm the store manager, and while a lot of people might think it would have been funny to throw out an outrageous price, I couldn't risk that. If they'd called our customer care team or corporate, it would have been a nightmare. The last thing I need is to get in trouble for making a joke or suggesting a sale that would have been wildly inappropriate. Since then, I've shared the story with my team, and it's become one of our go-to examples of the kind of customer requests that leave you speechless. Most days in retail, you expect the usual questions about warranties, sizing, and financing, but sometimes someone comes along who reminds you just how unpredictable this job can be. To this day, I still chuckle thinking about it, not because it wasn't frustrating in the moment, but because it's such a perfect snapshot of how wild retail can get. And yes, I still have my engagement ring right where it belongs. And our last story. Karen, you should get to know your neighbors better. I've lived on our quiet little street in a small town, I won't name it here to protect the innocent and not so innocent, in Oklahoma for almost 15 years, long enough to know every pothole on the road and recognize the hiss of a Dr. Pepper can opening from a block away. Around here, neighbors wave, lend tools, trade pies on Thanksgiving, and then go about their lives. Everyone except Karen. Karen moved in about 2 years ago. She's only 30, but looks like life spun her around 3 times already. Twice divorced and constantly rotating through a parade of temporary boyfriends, she always found something to argue about. Trash cans at the wrong angle, grass too long, you name it. Her latest boyfriend moved in 5 weeks ago, an abrasive local cop I nicknamed Officer Brute. From day one, he strutted around like he was the law, and the rest of us were just background characters. As for me, I'm a 40-year-old former elementary school teacher turned stay-at-home mom. Our 2 older kids live on their own now, but 17-year-old Grayson still spends evenings gaming in the basement. My husband, Arthur, is calm, unshakable, and rarely home. His work as a major in the state police keeps him busy. No one on the block knows about his rank. He's not the kind to flaunt a badge. It all started with our Labrador, Bonnie. Our chocolate-colored jumper slipped out of the gate one Saturday morning and dashed off to make friends with everything that moved. Before I could blink, her tail was wagging in Karen's yard. 2 minutes, maybe 3, then I rushed over, panting, and pulled Bonnie away. Karen, red as a tomato, threatened to shoot next time. I apologized, grabbed Bonnie by the collar, and thought, she's just being dramatic. But Karen took that moment and made it her personal crusade. She started spreading rumors, said I was training dogs to attack kids, that my fence was rusting apart and infecting the street. Nobody believed her, but her gossip moved faster than her old pickup. At night, she'd swing her truck around near our yard and rev the engine so loud the windows rattled. I ignored her until she marched onto our property, demanding we tear down our short white fence, claimed it violated HOA rules. Reminder, my house isn't in the HOA. I politely but firmly said no. 2 days later, I was planting petunias after a light rain. The air smelled like damp earth and everything felt peaceful until Officer Brute showed up on the walkway. Holding his radio casually, his right hand resting on his holster, he used the tone you'd expect to hear if you were robbing a bank. "You, ma'am, are violating the municipal code. That fence needs to be gone by the end of the week or..." He paused long enough for me to mentally fill in or go to jail. I tried explaining the code was on my side, but his "or" quickly turned into a stream of foul language, and that's when our front door opened. Grayson, hearing the yelling, ran to get his dad. Arthur had just come home from his shift and hadn't even changed yet. He stepped outside in plain clothes, hands in pockets, calm as ever. "What's the issue, officer?" he asked, neutral. "This doesn't concern..." Brute started, then froze as Arthur pulled out his ID and introduced himself by full title. The blood drained from Brute's face so fast I almost felt bad. His tone flipped instantly. "Ma'am, I apologize. Must have been a mix-up. I'll double-check that info." Arthur didn't even raise his voice, just told him flatly to leave the private property. The scene ended quietly, but the fallout was anything but. That night, I went to check the mailbox and heard Karen's house roaring with shouting like a wrestling match. Windows shook as she screamed that connections won't save you, and he muttered something about work matters. An hour later, Brute stormed out, slammed his truck door, and disappeared into the night. I never saw his car parked at Karen's again. I thought that was the end until the next morning when Arthur called me. He was having drinks at a bar with the city police chief, an old friend. The chief already knew about the incident. Apparently, word had spread. The neighbors saw a local patrol cop posturing like a big shot over a fence. The chief was livid. "Brute's getting written up," he said. "Might even get reassigned out to the edge of the county." Arthur hadn't asked for punishment. He's not vindictive. But when the chief offered to have a little chat, my husband just nodded. "Your jurisdiction, Joe." The following weeks were my quiet vindication. First came the whispers that Officer Brute had been reassigned to night shifts out in the soybean fields. No overtime, no perks. Then I noticed Karen was alone again. Her truck started breaking down, and the only place she could still yell was at the mechanic who refused to bump her up in line. The neighbors, now aware of the truth about the fence and threats, began avoiding her. Some parents even forbade their kids from walking past her house. The best part? Her beloved HOA rules finally caught up to her. She got cited for leaving her garbage bins open for 2 straight days. Rumor had it the inspector was a friend of the chief. I didn't ask. Karen tried to talk to me a couple times, but each time she saw my husband nearby, her plans evaporated. Once she left a note on my gate, "We'll meet again." I smiled, tossed it in the trash, and never got another one. I guess the disciplinary rumors about her boyfriend cooled her off. About a month after the dog incident, I was planting again, this time lavender. No truck revving, just silence and faint Mexican music from the neighbor's radio. Grayson laughed through his headset while gaming. Arthur came home early, handed me a cup of tea, and winked. Guess what? Our dear patrol officer officially got reassigned. 100 miles away. Karen's probably packing her stuff right now. I looked at my little flower bed, at the white fence that had stood for 10 years and made the yard feel cozy. It had never bothered anyone, and it wouldn't again. That's when I realized revenge doesn't always strike like thunder. Sometimes it's a quiet chain of consequences. You just have to let them unfold. Now peace and fresh-cut grass once again rule our street. Karen barely leaves her house, and when she does, she scurries back inside the moment she sees me. Bonnie roams the yard freely, barking at butterflies, and no longer gets in trouble, and I water my petunias thinking, who would have guessed that the strongest weapon against petty tyranny is a quiet smile backed by a hidden badge? When injustice comes knocking, sometimes the best response is to simply open the door and let it see it picked the wrong house. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.